On this episode of On Tap, the story of a brewery that started over a game of poker. And a brewer from Inbound Brewco shares his love for making beer. Plus, Red Cow serves up delicious food in a fun atmosphere.
Welcome to another episode of On Tap. I'm Ben Hale, joined by Danica Peterson. Today we are here in the North Loop of Minneapolis at Red Cow, and we've got some delicious little snacks in front of us right now. We've got their, what is this, Danica? Their popcorn.
This is their caramel bacon popcorn, and a
Yeah.
little bit we're also going to get to sample their burgers, and I'm stoked because their burgers are delicious, and so is this.
Let me tell you, when we started here and doing some other stuff here, this was like mounded, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be gone by the end of the show.
It's going to be gone within 20 minutes.
What are you drinking?
Well, you know, it is stout season. It's winter. You can get a whole lot of fantastic stouts on tap
That's for
everywhere
sure.
you go right now. And I'm lucky enough to be trying the Barrel Aged 1050 from Oscar Blues.
Nice. I've got Indeed's Rum King, which is another barrel aged in rum barrels, obviously, and it's so good. I love this beer.
It's a great time of year to drink beer. I recommend it.
Yes. Well, to start today's show, we headed to Stillwater, Minnesota to check out Lift Bridge.
Early 2000, I moved into a neighborhood here in Stillwater, became friends with some of the neighbors, and we started a neighborhood poker league. And through that process, we found out that each other liked craft beer. There used to be 3 breweries in Stillwater prior to Prohibition, and Joseph Wolf Brewery was the second largest brewery in the state of Minnesota. And we kind of wondered why there wasn't a brewery in Stillwater, and thought it would be kind of neat to have one here in the town. So that's kind of what kicked us off and started us moving down the road of starting a brewery. So we started by just working on recipes, thinking about what is the brand going to be like, what are we trying to capture in the beers, what kind of styles are we going to be working on. And so we did a lot of backyard parties with friends and neighbors, had them come over, had them rate the beers, give us honest feedback about it, and kind of help us narrow down to what some of our first recipes would be. And during that time, we also went and visited other breweries around the area, talked with them about their experience of opening a brewery, running a brewery, and to see if they had any advice. And one of the breweries that we met with was Flat Earth Brewing in St. Paul. And Jeff Williamson was the owner there, and after a few conversations, he offered to have us come in and start contract brewing at his facility. At the time, he had 5 fermenters and wasn't filling them up all the time. And so fortunately, we were able to get launched by contract brewing at Flat Earth Brewing in St. Paul. So we did that for about a year and a half, and then we did some contract brewing over at Stevens Point for a little while. That allowed us to get into bottles and distribute our beer a little wider. And then shortly after that, we ended up leasing some space here in Stillwater, and then put some money down on a brewing system and started building out the brewery.
In 2010 is when I came on board, and we opened up, we built a brewery here in Stillwater, and I came on board to help put things together, and also to kind of add so my background's in brewing, so I came in 2010 to help put things together, but also to kind of run the brewery.
So when we first got started, we bought a 15-barrel brew house, 2-vessel, and then we bought 3 30-barrel fermenters and 1 bright tank. So that allowed us to basically brew about 30 barrels of beer per week.
And now we're at 11 30-barrel fermenters and 4 60s, and so we'll have the capacity to produce about 8,500 barrels a year.
So we typically, if we're maxed out, we're running about 14 brews per week.
We also partner with another brewery that helps us during busy months as well with kind of capacity needs. So we'll be right around the 14 to 15,000 barrels of production this year.
How has a tap room changed your business?
When we first started, there was no taproom law, so we never planned on having a taproom. The thing that I really like about it is that the public gets to come here, they get to see, they look through the window, they see the equipment out there. They can, a lot of times, depending upon when they're here, they can smell what's brewing. So you get really that full experience, you hear what's going on. And then of course we can showcase all the different beers that we make.
For someone who hasn't been here before, hasn't had your beer before, how do you describe your style to them?
I think the main thing about our style is we certainly want to keep things in balance so that you can taste all the different ingredients, the different malts, those types of things. We don't really go in on a certain style necessarily, so we're not just doing lagers or Belgians or stouts. We really kind of run all over the place. And part of that I think is because we have five owners and founders, and everybody kind of has a different style, different flavor that they like. And so we like plugging in those different beers that everybody likes.
Lift Bridge it's almost synonymous with farm girl. So a lot of the times people ask for a Lift Bridge and you give them a hop dish and they say, no, I wanted the wheat beer. They wanted the Saison. So definitely farm girls are our most popular beer. It's origin specific, so it's all European or Belgian malts and imported hops.
That one was actually named after one of my partner's wives. She grew up on a farm in southwestern Minnesota and was really the inspiration for us to develop that beer and that style. And turns out it's certainly her favorite, but it's really a good favorite of a lot of people.
It's our biggest beer, probably over 50% of what we do. It's a great, for me, it's a fantastic beer. In the summertime, it's really easy drinking. It pairs very well with food, and it's a good beer for those that are kind of looking for something with more flavor. We call it a crossover beer as part of our tagline as well. So it really has mass appeal.
The other one that is really popular is our Hop Dish IPA. So it's a big, bold, fruity IPA. Kind of more of a Midwestern IPA, so we use some of those West Coast hops, but more of a sweeter malt.
Having grown up in the Midwest and traveling to West Coast, working on the West Coast, develop appreciation for West Coast IPAs, but I also like drinkability in beers, and so kind of tone down the sharpness of the hop bite, and then really look to throw in as much of the American aromatic hops as we can.
What's the future? What's next here at Lift Bridge?
Yeah. Well, we've been working a lot on barrel-aged beers, and we certainly plan on continuing to expand our barrel aging program. We have a warehouse full of barrels, and we plan to just continue to add to the barrel library.
Mentioning the barrels, we just had our Commander barley wine, barrel-aged barley wine release. And those are really fun. They all have a meaning for Lift Bridge. Commander goes back to the origins of the brewery, where it was brewed and then it was drank with friends the day after Thanksgiving. So it's a great story, and it's a really fun beer to produce because we're not only making beer that it's done in 60 days, but then it has another life in a barrel. And so the Commander is one of the first barrel-aged beers that we've done, and that some of Commander is still left in our barrel cellar right now. So we still have some of the 2010 vintage that's in barrel, and it's fun to, not a lot, but it's fun to go back and sample that throughout the years. And that in addition is a blended beer too. So we combine some stainless and we combine some beer from different barrels, and it's just a lot of fun. And we also bring people in from outside the four walls of the brewery to help with the blend. So we have that, plus really look forward to our Imperial barrel-aged stout silhouette. So we have about 4 beers in barrels right now, and it is a lot of fun. Like Stillwater, we're a getaway. Come on out. I mean, when people come to Stillwater, it's a laid-back lifestyle, and that's what our beers are. Our beers are very laid-back, approachable, and it represents what Stillwater is a fun getaway. So I would say that all of our beers are we have several varieties depending on what styles you like light or dark or hoppy or malty, and we have something to really appease anyone.
We're definitely beyond what we ever thought when we first started. I mean, our original goal was to have a hometown brewery in Stillwater, and certainly that came true pretty quick, which was great. And we're well beyond anything we ever thought we would be in. And we just continue to grow as the market responds to the beer. And you know, I guess we'll see where this journey takes us.
Thanks to the whole team out at Lift Bridge. We had a great time while we were out there. I always try to head out to Lift Bridge, out to Stillwater during the summer months, but it's really great all year round. Great vibe and great beer.
Yeah, and next we're going to look at Inbound Brewco. First, they were Lucid, and then they moved to the North Loop in Minneapolis, nearby, right where we are today.
Yep.
Well, they also operate the North Loop Brewing Company. They have a very popular tap room under the name Inbound Brewco that features an ever-changing beer menu. And today we're going to take a look at one of the faces behind the beers.
Seeing your own beer on tap out in the world or here at the tap room and seeing people drink it and enjoy it, it never gets old.
Brian Prefer is one of the brewers at Inbound Brewco. He brews a few batches a week, a job that is long and very physical.
I arrived at 6 a.m. And I got mashed in by myself, which is a little bit slower of a process when you don't have someone to help. I was converted, I converted my malt by about an hour and a half after that, and then did a little Vorloff to kind of clarify the wort, and then collected in the kettle for about an hour and 15 minutes. And I boiled for about an hour, actually an hour on the nose. Threw in some Whirlpool hops and let it spin for a while, and now I'm currently letting it rest for a while to let the particulates settle out into the bottom of the dish. And then I'm going to push the hot wort through a heat exchanger to cool it and push it into this fermenter right there.
For today's beer, they needed to unload nearly 1,000 pounds of grain into their mash tun by hand.
You saw us kind of stirring it around, just make sure there's no dough balls, make sure it's evenly spread out. And then we're going to let it rest for about an hour to convert starches into sugars via the enzymes that are activated with the hot water.
And once the first batch was done, they got to do it again, because on this day, they were making 2 batches.
I've found I'm not, at this point in my life, I'm not the type that can sit at a desk.
Brian's interest in craft beer started about 15 years ago, when he was looking for something good to drink.
I started to find craft beer probably in the early 2000s.
At first, it was hard to find something new to try.
The James Page Amber was kind of like what you could get, that and Summit. And you used to go into a bar and be like, oh, at least they have Summit, you know, EPA. And now it's kind of like, oh, at least, you know, they've got Bell's Two Hearted and Surly, you know, at least there's something good. And now, now a lot of places you go, they at least, oh wow, they have this great selection. But back in the day, it was a lot more difficult to seek out the craft beer. I remember buying some, I think it was Abita hazed and infused, or their purple haze, or I can't remember the name of the beer, but the gentleman that owned the liquor store was probably in his mid-50s, and he was pretty astonished that a kid who was 25 years old was interested in this craft beer. And so he was like, well, we have these, you know, beer tastings every, you know, 3 weeks or whatever. And so I started going to those and started, you know, learning how to appreciate it.
And at this point, his career appeared to be going down a completely different path.
I did not go to school for brewing. I went to college for library science, which I might pursue when my back goes out, you know, so.
But at the same time, his interest in beer and the process behind it was growing more and more.
But I learned to homebrew in my buddy Aaron's backyard.
He brewed more frequently and spent his brew days with others who have gone on to make it their profession. Then he got his first job in the industry.
I got the opportunity to start at American Sky as a beer tender.
A job that started simply became the turning point for his career.
You know, would mop the floor after my shift in the tap room and stare at the equipment and wish that I could brew on it. Fortunately, they had what's called a Sabco, and that's it's like a pilot system. Was a little, I don't even remember how many gallon, maybe 10, 15 gallon pilot system. So I started brewing on that to kind of show off what I could do. And then I asked the head brewer and owner, I said, hey, can I come by sometime when you guys are brewing? And he said, sure. So then every time he was brewing, I would try to find out, or I would ask him, and I would just kind of show up. And I just told him, I said, I'm just gonna keep showing up until you tell me to stop, showing up. And that was pretty much it. I guess he just, his work and home life got kind of crazy, and then he was kind of like, okay, you're kind of the assistant brewer now.
After growing into the brewing responsibility, American Sky was sold.
American Sky was purchased by, formerly was Lucid, about a year, almost 2 years ago now, about a year and a half. And then when they packed all the equipment up, I strapped myself to one of the tanks and forced them to take me with them.
And now, for the last year and a half, Brian has been part of the team of creative brewers making the beers for Inbound. They typically have about 15 beers on tap, made up of a variety of styles and strengths.
You put your heart and soul into this kind of thing, and people got to understand that this is as cool as this seems, and that it's still a job. You've got, it's hot. I'm obviously I've been doing something hot and sweaty. It's physically demanding. Sometimes it's very cold. Sometimes you're crouching in water. Sometimes you've got crabby coworkers. I mean, it's a job. It's a tough job. It's not for the physically faint at all. It's tough.
And as much work as it is, it's clearly a job that he loves.
If I didn't like it, I wouldn't do it. And it's, there's also plenty of free beer, which I love. So, and the camaraderie of the industry, and that is another piece to it. And working for some good people too. That'll always help.
We had a great time at Inbound Brewco, and it was fun to sample their ever-changing beer menu, and it changes week to week, so you can go anytime and it'll be different. And Inbound, just a few blocks from where we are now, here at Red Cow.
Yeah, and I think we just kind of have a great time wherever we go, and I think it might be because wherever we go, they give us beer.
Sure.
I'm not sure. But as you can see, we finished that caramel bacon puff corn, got that out of here. Now we've got some of their great burgers in front of us. I got their breakfast burger. You got their award-winning turkey burger over there. We're going to sample them all here at Red Cow, where they call themselves a 21st century tavern.
Our mission statement is actually an experience for our communities. So you're going to come in here, feel an awesome atmosphere. It's supposed to be comfortable yet sophisticated, little combo of both. And then you're going to get 17 gourmet burgers. And we don't want you just to be hooked on the burgers, so we have sandwiches and salads and appetizers. What really gets people to come in though is we have our high quality grind, we use CAB, then we have like tuna burgers where it's actually a seafood patty. Then we have a veggie burger, with vegetarian turkey burger, voted best in the Twin Cities. So you don't just have to come here and get a meat-filled burger. We actually have 54 menu items and we have 17 burgers. So we have 6 sandwiches, 6 salads, we have mac and cheese, shrimp tacos, and then we have a giant, we call it shareables list, which is our appetizers. We have about 13 of those as well. You can expand your horizons a little bit and they're all delicious. Burgers were kind of taken off on the East and West Coast, and being in the wonderful Midwest, we typically follow a couple years behind. And we love the idea of a 21st century tavern. That's kind of like our tagline. We want to be a 21st century tavern, a watering hole, but with excellent food, beer, wine, and all that. So we knew we wanted to do gourmet burgers. We knew we wanted to have tap beer. We knew we wanted to have a glorious wine system. And we were thinking about the name for forever. And one day my mother actually said, how about Red Cow? And we were like, that's it. Red for the wine, cow for the beef. Here at our North Loop store, we have 48 taps, 36 at the other. It's extremely important to us because people love beer. It's a huge movement right now, and we only tap craft beer. So that brings people in just on its own, that we have this giant craft list, but also we want to support our local breweries since there's so many. So we make sure that we have a good balance of beer so anyone can come in and get a porter, a stout, a session IPA, a double IPA, and we have a good balance. And something cool that we do is we actually let our bar managers at every location kind of run their own bar. We give them guidelines, to be like, hey, Indie Day Tripper, it's gotta be on. It's a top seller. Lift Bridge Farm Girl, always on, gotta be on. But for the most part, they get to kind of do their research and study and tap what they feel like our guests want. And we also listen to our guests where they're like, hey, you gotta get this beer on. We'll have it next week. December 20th is when we launch Red Rabbit, our newest sibling. Think everything you know about Red Cow, but just put pizza, pasta, and oysters in front of you instead of fine burgers. So it's going to be smaller pizzas, you know, but same price range as Red Cow, same atmosphere, 21st century tavern. We will have 24 taps on there, but we have a heavy, heavy cocktail book. So we're going more craft cocktail centric. We're going to have 43 wines by the glass there. Here we have 30 plus, right around there. So of course we're going to have 24 beers on tap because you just have to. Why wouldn't you? But then we're going to really dive into the craft cocktail world. I think first and foremost, everything we talk about is enhancing guest experience. Right when they walk in the door, we want to make sure that they're immediately comfortable and they want to come back. So from service to the beer pouring to how clean our wine glasses are, I mean, all that is extremely important to us. But then on top of that, with the food, we preach consistency. And when I've talked to friends of mine that come here all the time, when I see them here 3 times a week for lunch, they always say, every time I get the double barrel burger, it's the same thing. And that is extremely important. Obviously, not every restaurant tackles that. We focus on it daily. So I think the enhancing guest experience along with the consistency of our product keeps feet coming back in the door.
Red Cow has 3 locations here in the Minneapolis market, and then that new concept, Red Rabbit, that's opening up. That sounds delicious as well. Looking forward to trying that.
So before we go, we do want to thank Red Cow, Lift Bridge, and Inbound for sharing their stories with us this time on Tap.
All right, and we always want to thank you for watching On Tap. And remember, drink good beer and drink it responsibly. Cheers.